And you get into Clyde and Vernon Belcourt. Clyde and Vernon were very special. Vernon was, I'd met Clyde, and I was giving a talk at the University of Colorado. So I went over to give this talk, and while I was there, I was touring around, and here this guy comes up and says, "You're Lee Brightman?" I said, he says, "I'm Vernon Belcourt." And I said, You're Clyde's brother? And he said, "Yeah." So we started talking, and I said, "I'll be darned." And he was very eloquent. So we're riding down the street, and I'm driving, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden we crossed this boulevard, and a car coming from us and hit us from the side and just drove us about 20 yards down, and the door flew open, and Belcourt went out that side, and I'm here. And so he got back and he said, "Tell him your back is hurt." And meanwhile, the door's open and cars are coming like this, and I said, "Hell, we're going to get killed." And he says, "Lay here and tell him your back is hurt." And I said, "To hell with you, just screw the bad back." And we ran and sprinted to the sidelines. And he said, "Tell him your back is hurt." He said, "Hell, you'll get some money out of it. That's what I'm going to do." I said, "Okay." When we got back, I went over and I told him my neck was hurting. So they put some of that ultrasound on my neck. I got wounded in Korea, and I have shrapnel in my neck, back, and shoulder. And they were running, and I told them I hurt my neck, and they were running that ultrasound on my neck, and they heated up the metal, and it started hurting, and I told them the next day, I said, "My neck does hurt now." I was just bullshitting there. Well, anyway, I gave up on that, and so I met Vernon later, and he said, "Hell, I got $2,000 out of it. What'd you get?" And I said, "A bad neck, man." I got involved, as I said, in 1965 at the Indian Center in San Francisco. And I went from there, and I formed my own group, met some fantastic Indian people. When I got arrested by the FBI for harboring Dennis Banks, there was Charlie Hill came up. They had Marlon Brando came up. Tony Bennett sang at this big hotel downtown. He sang. Charlie came up to entertain, and Brando was there, and Banks and I, and all of us, and met a whole bunch of new people. I'd never met Charlie before. And Tony Bennett, he's Sicilian or Italian, whatever. He came over and donated his time to put on a benefit for us, the Indians. Marlon Brando came up and put his time in. And there are a lot of nice white people out there that come up and did a lot of damn good things for us in the past, and they're doing it today, and they have done it. And you don't hear about them, you know, but they did Bennett. He sang for nothing, and when I was in Korea, they brought us off the front lines for a couple of weeks to replace the dead and wounded, and Tony Bennett was there, and he sang in January, about 10 below zero. So there are a lot of nice people out there, non-Indians, that care about Indians. And you don't think it at times. You know, we all get mad and say, "Oh, those goddamn white people, they ought to kill them all." You know, I hate blacks, the son of a bitches, they ought to kill all of them. And you do that to everybody. We're all running around here making these accusations. And then you get down, we all have friends that are white, black, Indian, and otherwise. And I got involved, as I said, in 1965 at the Indian Center. And I am now 78. And I just retired from teaching about a year ago. Before I get off here, I decided to go back to school, and I went over to enroll at the University of California at Berkeley, and I was working on my master's degree. Well, I finished it and started working on my doctorate, and at that time, the blacks were going to start a Black Studies program, and a Chicano Studies, and Asian Studies, and I heard about it. So I went over and I talked to the directors, and I said, "Will you support me if I'm going to ask them to start an Indian Studies program?" And they said, "Okay." So I approached them about starting an Indian Studies program. If you're going to start one for blacks and Chicanos and Asians, you're going to have to do it for us, the first Americans. That's right. And they hem-hawed, and I said, "Well, I'm going to pick at your ass if you don't. And I'm going to file a civil rights charge against you, and you can't win." So they said, "Okay, we will." So they started looking for an Indian with a PhD. This is 1969. They're looking for an Indian with a PhD. And listen to this, there are only 10 Indians in America out of a whole race of people with PhDs. You go to school 4 years to get a BA degree, another 2 or 3 to get a bachelor's, another 2 to get a doctorate. You got about 6 to 8 years, and there are only 10 Indians with PhDs. And none of them wanted it. They offered it to a guy named Jack Forbes up at Davis. And he said, I don't want it. Why don't you give it to Brightman? He just finished his master's degree at Berkeley. He's the first Indian to ever get a master's degree there, and he's working on his doctorate. So they offered it to me. And I said, I don't know. What I knew about Indians, you could put in your goddamn earlobes, you know. Every course I ever took, we raided wagon trains in a circle, you know, and holler woo 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 as you fucking going around, you know. But, you get dizzy sooner or later and fall off a goddamn horse if you keep raiding in a circle. If I'm offending some of you by my cussing, get used to it. Well, anyway, I turned around and I found out that, you know, the blacks, Chicanos, Asians said they'd support me. So Forbes talked to them also, and they said, okay, we're going to start an Indian Studies program. And they found 10 Indians with PhDs, and none of them wanted it because they weren't paying enough money. And that's when Forbes said, why don't you give it to Brightman? He just finished his master's and working on a doctorate. We're going to pay you $10,500. And I said, you know, you damn white people are crazy in hell. I only wanted 10 and you're going to pay me 10.5? I'll take it. And the guy said, I'm not white, I'm black. Do you want it or not? And I said, yeah, I'll take it. What I knew about Indians, you could put in your goddamn hair in your earlobe, you know. So I had to go out and buy a bunch of books. Here, I'm going to start the Indian Studies program, the first in the world, at UC Berkeley. And what I knew about Indians was nothing. And I went on and started buying all these books on Indians. And I developed a political science course. And on how many treaties that we signed, and how many call for health, how many call for... Well, the first treaty was 1778 with Delaware Indians. The last treaty was signed, and I think it was 1879 with Nez Perce Indians. We signed 280 treaties, and we gave away over 1 billion acres of land. And anyway, I started looking at all these things and putting them together, and developed a political science course. And then I developed a sociology course, and later they wanted me to get together a humanities course. And I said, I don't know anything about humanities. And they said, well, develop one. So I started thinking, well, what are some of the contributions of Indians? I'll look this up. And I found one book on medicine and found out that there are 250 different medicines that were developed by Indians. And your Inca Indians from Peru were the first to perform skull surgery. And they were using cocaine. They'd shoot cocaine leaves to deaden the nerves. And your Inca were the first who not only developed their performing skull surgery, but they developed the potato. Your Aztecs from Mexico developed a pill, not a pill, but an herb they took to keep their women from getting pregnant. They were the first to take broken bones and put them in plaster casts. Your Inca Indians from Peru built a place called Machu Picchu. They built a fort that goes about 3 footballs long, about 10,000 feet above sea level in the mountains. And they got stones that weigh 200 and 300 tons. 150 to 200 tons. There's 2,000 pounds in a ton. How do you take a rock that weighs 250 ton and transport it up 10,000 feet into the mountains and set it down and put a line of them about 2 blocks long and another layer on top of that and a third tier on top of that? And they said, oh, the space Martians came down and helped them. They couldn't believe an Indian could do that. They had to be some goddamn outer space beings came down and did it, you know. And I said, my ass. The Inca, the average Inca is about 5'3" or 4", and weighs about 90 pounds. And they built those. They built those and a series of other things that were just marvelous. The Inca from Peru, the Maya Indians from Central America, and the Aztecs of Mexico were the most 3 highly developed societies in the whole world. They surpassed anything in the world, Europe, Asia, or any place. And nobody knows about it because it's a damn well kept secret.